right, hey everyone. I'd like to welcome the next panel. Zach from our team will be moderating this, and it's all about how growth has changed due to COVID. We all know that e-commerce completely was altered by what happened during COVID, and all these people started buying online for the first time ever. So that changes a lot of rules when you have a lot of new buyers. They're acting in very different ways than they used to. So please come up on stage.
Everyone, take a seat. Thanks for that talk, Patrick, if he's still in the room. I thought that was super useful. Everyone knows, obviously, COVID has had all kinds of effects on people, on economies, political diversion, people not believing certain stuff. We're going to focus on a few good things that have come out of COVID. And that's the acceleration of COVID and, acceleration of trends that COVID has continued to sort of further. So we've got Curtis, Chase, and Michael here. So for everyone here, would it be possible just to give a brief introduction of yourself and the business that you're in?
Sure, down succession here. Cool. My name's Curtis Schlaufman. A little bit of background. I've been with Neil Patel, the brand itself, and my friend, and then he runs a digital agency that is now global for the past 5 years as a marketing brand manager. Then we launched a software called Ubersuggest. We really acquired it and then developed it out and monetized it in February of 2020. Was one of the first 5 employees there. It's an SEO tool. Currently, I'm an advisor to the company and work in the role of VP of Marketing and Communications for a company called Valor, which is a public company that bridges crypto Web3 to traditional financial markets. That's where I'm at right now.
My name is Chase Alderton. I'm the Partner Marketing Manager at Recharge. We are the leading subscription management's payment solution for subscription merchants of all sizes.
Great. And I'm Michael Newman from Tipalti, a sponsor here and a great partner of, thank you for your partnership, Everflow as always. I've been there for just about a year, right at the middle of COVID, and have seen this acceleration. Look forward to sharing that. Prior to that, I've spent some time at SAP and Adobe. And at Tipalti, I lead the demand gen team, so right in the thrust of all this digital marketing excitement.
So we've got some sort of scripted questions here, but it's always good to sort of have a freewheeling discussion. So kind of expand on these points. Like what sort of trends, Michael, maybe to you first, what sort of trends in buyer behavior have you seen with COVID, and do you think that's going to last?
Sure. Yeah. So we've all seen the acceleration of the digital marketing, right? That's where we all went when we all went home to work, and I think some of that's going to continue. I think there will be some aspects of that we'll have to continue to navigate because as we're seeing more and more the buyer process go deeper in digital, meaning I think the stat is 70% of the process is now done online before they talk to any salesperson. So if you're doing that much online research, you've got to engage them across different channels. You can't be all through email, can't be through social only. How do you bring that all together? And I think that's going to continue to go. We heard some folks yesterday talk about video as an option, and there's other aspects of that we'll have to explore too. But it's not just the initial acquisition on digital, but now it's deeper into the buyer process.
Chase, what about yourself? Like what changes in buyer behavior have you seen, and do you think that will continue to last?
So Recharge deals a lot with D2C merchants, so a lot of our end consumer buys directly from their brand. So a lot of my answers are going to be kind of focused on that side. But I think the biggest one we've seen is shipping rates, shipping prices, shipping times. Everybody, when they were at home during COVID, expected that 1-day, overnight, or 2-day shipping at the slowest. When you're out and about in the world, there's a lot of time, there's a lot of things you're doing, so that 2-day shipping isn't that big of a deal. When you're sitting at home all day long, you need that overnight shipping. You expect it to be there the next day, oftentimes same day. That I unfortunately do think is going to stick around. I think that's going to be a long-term thing. Tough to really say how to manage that. I think my big thing that I've talked about a lot is education and communication. So I think as long as you're setting the right expectations, as long as you're communicating to your end merchant or to your end subscriber, hey, this is going to be a 3-day shipping, this is going to be a 2-day shipping, whatever it is, you can upgrade. As long as you're communicating that, I think that's kind of one way to mitigate it. But I do think that this expectation of very, very quick shipping is here to stay.
How about your good self, Curtis?
So we see things from a B2C perspective with our SaaS company, and then with the agency, it's B2B. We'll start with the SaaS side. We, at Ubersuggest, we're working more towards automation and making things easier for folks to digest, pick up, and understand and implement an SEO strategy. It's a long-term vision for the company. And a lot of folks, when they come to us, they already know of the brand Neil Patel. So to start off, brand is more important than ever with so many options out there. And then if people buy into your brand, if they find it authoritative and they trust it, then you have to deliver user experience. And that's more so where Google has pivoted over the past couple of years as well with their core algorithm updates, core vitals, focusing on user experience, site speed, load times, and then the stability of the website. And it's like, for the first time ever, they're actually giving people the answers on how to improve their sites to rank better. So that's a big change. And people have had to focus on that. So now they're looking for resources and that sort of shortcut on how to execute their SEO strategy, because it can be complex and overwhelming for a lot of folks out there. There are a few hundred different ranking factors involved. So with our company, we've really had to narrow it down to a few simplistic things, not only provide the tooling, but also the resources and education. So that way we can, ultimately convert that lead or convert that person into a paying subscriber. And then on the B2B end with enterprise businesses, a lot of those companies have, like mentioned earlier, have already done their shopping. They've already compared multiple agencies, gone out and got a couple of quotes. At the end of the day, it's about how are you going to be better than the competition and how are you going to make this easy for us and deliver those results. And that's where brand comes into play. That's where having, actual case studies and being able to deliver, hey, this is what we've done for similar companies in your sector to build that trust. A lot of, I think the stat was 30% of B2B potential customers prefer that online interaction now rather than a face-to-face sales pitch.
Yeah. And Chase, yesterday when we were talking, I was quite surprised at the growth of Recharge in terms of staff and things. Has COVID changed your business, do you think, or has it just accelerated kind of what you were planning to do anyway?
I think it's really just accelerated it. I don't necessarily think it's changed fundamentally. I think one of my favorite things that we saw was alcohol sales in the beverage category actually passed non-alcohol sales in, I think, April of 2020. So 2 months into the pandemic, alcohol skyrocketed, which I think is great. No, I don't think it's fundamentally changed anything. I think if anything, it's just kind of fast forwarded, 5-10 years into the future. I think subscriptions in 2020, everyone was kind of experimenting and trying to figure out if this really is the future. I think now, sitting here in 2022, I think it's undoubtedly a significant piece of any D2C business that you need to kind of lean into. So no, not really kind of, changed anything crazy, just kind of moved into the future.
Michael, would you echo that as well?
First of all, I tried to offset that. I signed up for every coffee subscription I could, but didn't work out, I guess. So, from a Tipalti standpoint, COVID definitely accelerated what we were already planning to do. I joined last July. I was in the employee range under 500. We're now over 1,100. And they had grown from 200 to 400 since then. So again, just accelerated. And it really is because as we all went home, as I said earlier, we still needed to get the work done. We just had to digitize more of the process and do more automation. That's exactly what we do across the entire payment experience. And so the financial team at a company couldn't sit there and manually sign checks or manually onboard a partner. They had to distribute that across a broader network, even internationally. And that just accelerated our growth. And then I'll be remiss to not acknowledge the fact that other areas were also growing: influencers, creators, affiliate marketing. All that was an additional factor on top of this growth. And again, we'll continue to see that here for the next couple of years.
Well, one thing that we said as well, that, Tipalti, for those that don't know Tipalti, they're like a payment processing provider that helps scale. And one thing that we sort of mentioned was the fact that COVID has forced companies to become international, whether it's with remote staff or just a different approach to viewing like having someone remote or an affiliate in Romania or wherever. It's kind of, so have you seen that internationalization accelerate through COVID as well?
Absolutely, yeah. And again, we're one of the very few payment processors that does a broad payment options. Most people, you can do PayPal. We have 6 different options for international. And so we're able to pay the payees, in the currency they want, in the country they want. And so that's a huge benefit. They're not being tied to one option, and they don't have to absorb the fees either. So that's a much better outcome for them.
How about you, Curtis? Has there been significant changes of stuff?
Yeah,
and is internationally kind of tied into that?
Yeah, on the agency side, we had physical offices prior to COVID. Our biggest was in San Diego, and we had grown into 3 different offices because the agency was growing so fast. And then once COVID hit, we had to go remote. That has maintained. We still have an office in San Diego for people to go to if they like, but for the most part, people work remote. We're also able to hire internationally as well. With Ubersuggest, we've always been remote. We have grown to, I think, over 70 employees with the company now. We have employees in 7 different countries across the globe. Our development team is in Europe. Our customer success team is mostly out of South America. And then for a while, I was the only employee that was in the U.S. Most of them were in Vancouver. But yeah, it's a company entirely ran essentially on Slack, which 5 years ago was probably not feasible at the time. And it's so weird too, because I've developed some really great friendships, relationships that work with people I have never met.
Slackmates.
Yeah, Slackmates. It's incredible. And like, I'm hoping someday that we'll all find a time to get together and meet in person. But
you'll find they're a bot. They're just a bot.
Or just get catfished the whole time, yeah? But no, it's definitely the weird thing out of COVID. Like, you're working with people you've never met in your entire life and may never meet. So
yeah,
it's incredible.
We actually have a few people based in Toronto here that I've never met that I'm going to go meet tonight. Yeah. So I'm excited to go meet some people I've known for 2 years that I've never met.
So I got to hop over to Vancouver to meet a few. So there you go. For that.
So Patrick was talking earlier about like the markets and how, this sassacre that we've seen of kind of software as a service kind of dropping, and like Bessemer Ventures, who is like a big VC fund, said the unicorns are dead. We need centaurs now, and centaurs are essentially companies that actually make money, which is kind of a big surprise. But from Michael, from the sort of the finance end of the spectrum, like, do you see like the market sort of that we're going through as just a sort of natural correction to sort of like as Patrick was saying, sort of overhyped, or where do you see like that market side of things going?
Sure, yeah, I'm probably a little bit more cynical than Patrick, and I did chat with him a little bit, but companies over the last 10 to 15 years have been building themselves around getting just enough sales to get the next round of funding, because it's been there. There's been cheap money, free money out there, and so they could just go from 12 to 15 months and get new money. That's gone for the next 2 to 3 years. So who has built a resilient model? Who has built a company that will deliver efficiency, deliver cost savings, or help them bring in more money, as Patrick said? If you've done that, then you're okay. If not, and you're struggling to find those customers that have lifetime value, then there will be a shakeout, some consolidation, and some that just go away.
And Chase, you were saying sort of yesterday, some of the points that Patrick sort of echoed there, stolen your thunder. We needed to start this a bit earlier. But what are your thoughts on like that sort of market correction, the overhyped sort of value of stocks? And
yeah, so I just couldn't echo Patrick more. I think to try to take a positive outlook on it, I kind of agree with you, but we'll go positive for mine a little bit. I think that the brands who go back to basics and the brands who go back to the fundamentals are the ones who are going to win. For subscription brands, for D2C brands, it's all about average order value, it's all about churn, and it's all about lifetime value, which ultimately kind of all affect each other. But if those 3 things you can really lock down, if you can really dig into those 3 and unlock the potential there, that sets you up with a really solid foundation that kind of mitigates this loss of company value or whatever it ends up being. I would argue it's almost a good thing. I know it's not, but from a positive lens, it's almost a good thing With so much money out there, you can kind of now ignore all of that that's not there anymore, go back to basics, really build your foundation, and then ultimately when you zoom out, the market does always go up and to the right anyway. So this will circulate, this will come back to a positive time, and then if your foundations are solid, the money will be there again.
And Curtis, like your business is presumably pretty performance-led, right? So kind of corrections there are kind of no bad thing either, right?
I mean, it is a bad thing to some extent. So, I mean, with inflation, people don't have as much cash. You know, you have a good lot of people who are in debt for their entire lives and live paycheck to paycheck, especially small business owners. So that will likely hurt us, at least our growth to some extent on the software side, as those small businesses won't have the cash to purchase subscription type tools, or at least on a consistent basis.
And sorry to interrupt, but like the composition of your business, is that made up mainly of smaller businesses?
On Ubersuggest, yes. A lot of our users are small businesses or brand new to SEO, don't quite understand it, and are looking for the tooling and resources to execute that digital strategy. With the agency, we take medium to enterprise size level businesses that will probably not be affected too much to that extent, but on a general level, as long as you're seeing growth in your business and you're seeing a low churn amount, you're going to see money at some point if you're looking to raise or even sell for that matter. Valuations will be quite lower probably over the next couple of years. I also like working in the public markets now as well. There is an overcorrection occurring to some extent. There are companies that are executing and building and seeing growth. However, they're trading at half of their net asset value currently right now. So if you're into stocks or alternative investments, it's a good time to potentially buy, at least dollar cost average, over the next year or so, as long as the market remains low. But this is going to hurt a lot of folks, particularly with inflation, as that continues to be a huge issue. And then it's going to hurt a lot of small businesses. So you will see sort of the little guys get hurt, and the big companies continue to swallow up more market demand. Unfortunately, that's a cynical view, but that's the reality of what we're seeing right now.
I mean, it's kind of like the dot-com boom sort of 20 years ago, right? Where if you had a domain, you were suddenly worth, $100 million. And, now it's kind of crazy when you see some companies, like the busier they are, the more money they lose. It's kind of like, well, that doesn't make sense. But in terms of like actual kind of growth and things like that, Chase, like Recharge has had a really good run. Obviously, we were speaking yesterday about that. What's actually been like the real drivers to that growth? And maybe if you could be like as specific as possible to kind of share that. What's really been the fundamentals of that growth?
For Recharge in of itself?
Yeah.
So I think I touched on it earlier. I think that subscriptions have kind of become something that all D2C brands should at least look at and analyze. I think subscription growth is a function of consumer need and consumer desire. Consumers will consistently need their products, and they'll consistently need them on the basis that works best for them. I think the example I was telling you yesterday was unique delivery windows. So everyone thinks for subscriptions, 1 week, 1 month, a quarter, and a year. Finding windows that actually are consistent with what the product requires. So does a tube of toothpaste actually last you 30 days on the dot? Or does it last you 22 days? Or does it last you 18 days? And finding those little data points, and you can kind of back up and go all the way through the checkout process. So now you're asking people, how often do you use your toothpaste? Is it twice a day? Is it 3 times a day? This thing lasts 18 uses. So now you're looking at how many times. So now we're going to start to ship on specific time frames as opposed to just like a full 30-day window. I think consumer behavior has required a lot more data and a lot more insight, and I think that has just kind of funneled up and supported Recharge in the large scheme.
Yeah. And Michael, I can kind of have some guesses on Tipalti of what's been the actual sort of architecture to your growth. I would guess kind of like solving complexity is a big one, right? Because that's what you guys do pretty well. What would you say has been like the real steps to your growth?
Yeah, and I think it's just people finance finally getting to the point where they're ready to transform. They've been funding everybody else's transformation, and now they brought it in-house. Hey, what about me? And again, this disbursement of of people across the globe, they had to do that. They had to break apart that process. And so automating all of that was huge, as we said earlier. And then I think, let's focus a little bit on just the marketing side of that. A lot of that is still coming in inbound. So Ubersuggest, your practices are still working. And we're still seeing a lot of people searching for it. It's just coming in through multiple channels. It's not coming in, one search and done. Again, they're expanding that across multiple touch points versus just the one before. But they're looking for those automation plays. They're looking for that efficiency, and by doing so, Tipalti's been able to deliver that.
And what would you say, Curtis, has been like the real sort of nuts and bolts of what's making you grow?
Well, to be blunt, Neil has built his brand over the past decade. We have not done any paid acquisition of customers up until like the last 3 months. So we built a paid subscriber base of over 50,000 users over the first 2 years of the business. We have over a million monthly users, and that includes free users on trials as well. So Neil's brand has really powered Ubersuggest and led to its growth. And that's all based on him putting out value on a consistent basis over the years that people could utilize and get educated on. So that's all centered around content. And content continues to be, as cliche as it is, content is king. And if people find your content valuable and useful, they're going to continue to come back to that well. And you can leverage whatever brand you build through that content to build a tremendous business.
Cool. And like when we think of Neil Patel, I can't get the guy's face out of my mind when I think of Neil Patel.
You should see the comments that we get sometimes.
But like that sort of things of like helping brands grow and providing content. Like what sort of things should be avoided by brands if they're entering into the online world, they're looking to ramp up. What strategies, and bearing in mind like the talk sort of centers around COVID, so whether this impacts us or not, but like are there kind of like big no-nos that are being educated through what Neil's doing?
With Neil, we've always kind of just tried a little bit of everything to see what's worked, and if something works, you double down on it. And I think the core principle was to always provide value, always be useful, and never piss off your customer. And stick to what you know. Like there isn't necessarily a growth strategy or something that you shouldn't do because every business is a little different. People may react differently to it, but we're always about testing. I can't tell you how many different A/B tests we've ran over the past couple of years just to increase our conversion rates. And if you have a high amount of traffic, one little tweak can be a huge difference on revenue. So instead of telling you what not to do, try everything if you think it might be a good idea. And if it works, double down on it.
Cool. And what about yourself, Chase? If you, let's say within this kind of scared market sort of thing, if someone was a clone of you in your business, what would you advise them not to do?
I'm not going to say what not to do because I'll echo Curtis. You should try everything.
Yeah.
I would lean into community, which I know has been mentioned a couple times here, and I know Patrick kind of dove really deep on that. It's not an immediate gratification tool. So if you're building a community, if you're building a brand, to use an easier word, it's not something you can do overnight. It's not something you can do and, hey, our goal for this quarter is to build a brand. That's a lifetime long thing. But if you have a brand and if you can build a community, you center people around a common interest, and you can actually genuinely create that community. I'm not talking just put 100 people in a Facebook group, but if you can get a community together, that creates long-term sustainable subscribers and people who will advocate for your brand. Shout out to the Everflow team. I think affiliates is going to be huge over the coming few months as kind of digital ads wind down a little bit and are a little bit less effective. But in the same way as community or advocates, your referrals, your affiliates are advocates. So those are the best people to go after. Those are the best people to be in your community. And if you can reward them, it's just a positive feedback loop. Everyone's going to keep doing it. And those are the ones who mitigate your churn the most and end up with the highest lifetime value. that's repeatable. That's the way to do it. It's just not an immediate gratification tool.
Yeah. Michael, what are the battle scars that you wear in terms of things that you won't be doing again in a hurry?
Well, surprisingly, or maybe not, I think we were way past peak virtual, so no more webinars, or fewer, I should say. Fewer virtual events. We want to do more engagement like this.
Yeah, that's a good point, isn't it?
Get that person.
Like not relying on, hey, this worked for the last 2 years, so we're going to keep on doing that. In terms of meeting people virtually and stuff. Right.
And then as from a business standpoint, I'll pick up on your word, referrals. Absolutely double down on getting those referrals, especially if you're just starting out. It's that long-term value or lifetime value that Patrick mentioned. That's what's going to build your ARR over time. You may give up 20 points, 30 points now, but in 12 to 15 months, if you've got 5 more clients or 10 more clients because of that, then you're going to triple and quadruple your ARR over time. And so give it now, and you'll get paid back later. So I think that's, from a business standpoint, I would focus a little bit on the referrals as well.
Cool. And last couple of questions, just generally, no order, but if someone was starting a business now, how would you go about starting that? Either in a sector, like maybe thinking of, I don't know, like what are the big themes of people starting business? I mean, one theme that I sort of think about a lot is that I was describing it to a friend the other day of like people now have a business. It's kind of like Up, the Disney film, with the balloons being like SaaS things that you can just cut off. Where you don't need to be like a payment processing expert when you can use Tipalti or HubSpot for CRMs. Like, I think that's like one kind of big trend. If you were sort of starting a business, just a general kind of free-for-all, what kind of big trends do you see that are important or things to bear in mind for starting?
Recurring revenue.
Yeah.
Recurring revenue.
No, I right on to your point, the metaphor. Building a tech stack is really important. And making sure that everything works together and making sure that everything kind of flows the way it should. Everflow data moving into recharge and all of that kind of stuff. I think that's the big thing to really make sure works from the get-go. Otherwise, A/B test everything and see what works.
Yeah. I think the other aspect is, depending on where you are in your journey, if you're literally just starting, know who you are and build your brand around who you are. That's what Neil did. That's what other companies there are trying to do. Once you've done that, then you can focus on, okay, now that I know who I am and who I want to be out in the market, how do I achieve that? And that's product market fit. How do you get there? But it doesn't do much good to have product market fit if people don't know who you are, because they're still not going to find you. So you got to me, you tackle it in that order, and that will then accelerate the growth later on, get that recurring revenue once you've, again, identified who you are, put that out in the market, and then can have built the product to address that.
Because I guess a lot of it's kind of like solving the highest value problem that you can find, not necessarily the sexiest one, and being like an inch mile and a wide, an inch across and a mile deep in terms of the depth of that problem that you solve, right? What would you say or add to that, if anything?
I mean, they covered the basics, so I'm trying to scrounge for something that I guess look forward and see how your business might fit into Web3 and the opportunity there, because that's the current gold rush we're in the next frontier, and see how your business can leverage that movement and fit into there.
Well, that couldn't have been a better segue to the final question, which is, where do you see like your business going in the next couple of years?
So with Ubersuggest, we are solely focused really on automation and building a tool that does SEO for folks. Because if you can build a business that does stuff for people rather than them taking their time to learn and implement themselves, you're saving them a lot of overhead or cash in the savings. They don't have to hire somebody to do it, or time, or they don't have to learn it and implement it themselves if they don't have the resources to hire somebody to do it. So if you can build a business or a tool, for that matter, that does something for someone and solves a problem for them, like a lot of SaaS companies currently do, but like figure out, look at something that currently doesn't have that existing in a market, and you can make a ton of money. So that's what we're focused on at Ubersuggest.
Michael?
Yeah, I mean, same thing, but in the finance world, right? So we're automating that process. So we're giving people time back. We're giving them more money to invest in other areas. And with that time and money, they're able to scale more quickly, go to broader geographies, go into other markets because they don't have to worry about what the impact that's going to be on their payment processing or onboarding of new partners, especially, again, as we continue to see this wave of creators and influencers come on and affiliate marketers. You're just giving them gobs and gobs of time back. And so they can then go use that time more wisely, invest it in more strategic areas.
And, I kind of said, like, the internationalization for Tipalti, like, is that where the growth's going to come from, Tipalti? Is it going to be, like, other products? Or what would you say is, like, the 2 or 3 big things that's going to...
Sure, yeah, so internationalization is going to be huge, right? We opened an office in the UK last year.
You got 70 people there now.
70 people now, right? Probably 75 now, probably a couple days
That was this
behind.
morning.
That's right. And then, Europe's coming next, obviously. That's, you start in the UK, then you go to continental Europe. And then beyond that, we've got our eyes on a few markets, seeing how this time period shakes out. We'll go into those where that makes sense. But again, serving customers that are in those markets is what we want to do, because that's where honestly, the more times we can touch the money for them, the more we save them, and the more we make. So it's a win-win. So foreign transaction fees, multi-entity fees, all those things they're paying. Just again, lots of transaction fees to banks or to other payment providers, and by consolidating that, giving you a single partner to work with, we can reduce those fees and give more visibility to the financial team and allow them to close books quicker. So it's a win-win all around.
And Chase, obviously, like, subscriptions, we were sitting down yesterday and I kind of said to you, I haven't really thought too much about subscriptions, and it does seem like a massive untapped area. You mentioned things like shampoo and toothpaste and things like that. Like, where's the next 2 years going to look like for subscriptions generally, right?
Yeah, so I think just echoing what both of them said, just from a D2C standpoint, is it's not necessarily solving a problem, but it's providing more value. So coffee is another really great example. You brought up subscription coffee earlier. Instead of just turning your subscription coffee business on and say, okay, we'll ship you every 30 days, convince people that not only is the 30-day time window wrong, so we'll ship it to you on the right time frame, but now you're talking education. So where's the coffee coming from? What kind of family is the one harvesting this? What kind of tasting notes are you looking for? There's partnership opportunities available. Partner with local milk brands. Partner with sustainable cup brands. Partner with graffiti artists, do pop-ups. There's a lot of ways to kind of provide extra value to something that's kind of a ritual like morning coffee. So as opposed to just let's flip a switch, let's call this subscription coffee. Provide some value, provide an experience. That I think is what a lot of people are looking for moving forward.
And that's actually a great way of thinking about it, isn't it? Anything that's a ritual should be a subscription.
Could be, yeah.
You brush your teeth, you wash your hair. Some people wash their hair, but some people brush their teeth. The English apparently don't. But yeah, that's a great way to think about it. And there's many, many rituals, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Across businesses and consumers.
Yeah.
So cool. Are there any questions at all for these 3 gentlemen here have come here on their day off? So let's throw them some questions. Oh, we're out of time, are we? Oh, sorry. So are any other final things that you guys would like to say just before?
We're out of time.
And that's it. Any other things that you guys would like to add?
No, thanks for having us.
No, well, genuinely, thank you. Let's give them a big round of applause, everyone. Thanks very much. Cheers.